I can remember the night it started very clearly. I was extremely stressed out over some homework due the next day, and I had just finished writing it. I stood up to go do something, and when I came back, I could not find the piece of paper. I panicked and started frantically searching, only to find it tucked in between 2 notebooks in my backpack. Relieved, I sat down at the table for a few moments. For some reason or another, I looked down at my hands placed on my lap and was distracted by these tiny black dots on my thighs. I could not stop staring. It felt like a jumble of words all over my body, and I couldn't make sense of it. I brought my hands down and began picking. These spots I perceived as imperfections on my skin urged me to pick at them relentlessly. It turned into a pattern. It was something I started doing on the daily. Something I couldn't stop doing.
Skin picking is more of a compulsion, like a behavior that takes on a life of its own. It isn't directed at annihilation of the self. It's not done as necessarily a way to cope with stress, although when people are more stressed, they're more likely to engage in compulsive behaviors. The person trying not to pick their skin is using all their mental energy to suppress the urge to scratch. Finally, they can't help it, they scratch, and just for a short period of time, they experience some relief. So that can be a reinforcing kind of behavior that sets up a circuit in the brain that keeps replaying itself.
As I was researching more about this disorder, I realized that I wanted to hear experiences from other people. I didn't just want to read about the disorder. So I decided to post on Reddit, and I asked people to share their experiences, to share their stories with dermatillomania. And within a few days, I got 16 stories from people.
I started picking at age 15 after I had been raped.
I have been a nail biter since a child and have found this habit incredibly hard to stop. Fortunately, around the age of 18, starting a beauty course encouraged me to give this up, so my nails
I picked my nails for 13 for about as long as I can remember.
I sit at my desk and routinely pick around each
In about
pink
11th grade, I picked my arms
the cycle would repeat again, or even finding time to be alone solely so I can pick them in
compulsive
peace.
skin picking similar to mine, but I have found very few that started with trauma.
As a psychiatrist, my training is to identify what symptoms are present that are causing disruption or discomfort or suffering in the patient's life, and then to look for treatments for those, usually with medication being the main focus. As a social worker, I was taught to look at the big picture, the psychosocial behavioral context. So not just what is the symptom, but what are the social factors or the economic factors or the cultural factors or even medical illnesses that are surrounding and driving any particular behavior.
A catalyst for this project was my discovery of an artist by the name of Liz Atkin, who has dealt with compulsive skin picking over many years of her life, and she uses charcoal on newspapers that she finds in the subway and draws on them in order to cope with her skin picking. Instead of charcoal on paper, I decided to experiment with chalk on concrete because it seems to have those same movements. While I was drawing this piece, I could feel the chalk against the ground, and I could feel the texture of the concrete against the chalk. I could feel the chalk crumbling as I drew. And I had this freedom to spread anywhere I wanted to. Liz Atkins' willingness to share how she copes with dermatillomania is extremely inspiring. And she's proving that there's not one simple way to ease the effects of this disorder. There's not one cure. This is lifelong.